Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday, or whenever you're listening to today's episode. Today, we are talking all about gatherings, specifically Thanksgiving, because I know that this is really entering into that time of the year where we'll be seeing family, eating foods that maybe we aren't always used to eating. And I really just want you to feel confident going into those gatherings, both with your relationship with food, because that is a huge component here, but also feeling in control around food and minimizing the discomfort you feel when you eat that food. Because for most of us, it's probably going to be a lot heavier dishes than we're used to eating. I'm thinking of like the cheesy green beans, the creamy mashed potatoes, all of the things, the sweet potatoes with marshmallows on top, just the very traditional hearty foods that we all know and love. And those are special things. Like, we should enjoy that food when we're there. But you also don't want to feel like you have to take a nap after you eat or lay around all day just because you feel so sluggish and uncomfortable in your skin, right? Food is a wonderful thing, and there is so much to be said about eating for our mind and eating for our body, which I'm going to discuss, but I really just want to briefly touch on that because it's a huge piece of what I talk to with clients, especially when I work with them during the holiday season. My rebuild program right now, we will really be together for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I want people to feel comfortable around food and comfortable knowing that it is okay to enjoy things that you have traditionally enjoyed, right? When we think about eating for our mind, we're eating for that piece of us that wants to feel comforted by food, that wants to enjoy something that our grandma's made or a recipe that's been passed down for generations, or to go to that Friendsgiving and not feel like we have to portion control or really emphasize the food, but rather focus on who we're with. I always give this example because I think it's just the easiest way to describe how I view eating for my mind. But for me, this is like going to a wedding and eating a big old piece of wedding cake because you're at a wedding. Like, why wouldn't you enjoy the cake? Same with Thanksgiving. You're at Thanksgiving with your family or with your friends, whatever that dynamic looks like, or maybe just with another person and you just do a meal intimately. But you are at that gathering, you are with those people. Why wouldn't you enjoy all of the good food that your grandma's made for you, right? To me, it's just a no-brainer. Of course I'm going to. But that's not always been how it's been in the past, right? When I was way more focused on eating for my body, which we need to do, right? We need to focus on eating for our body most of the time. If we just let our mind take over, we're going to notice we fall back into patterns that maybe aren't the most healthy. When we focus on eating for our body, we focus on nourishing our body really well. That means with good food, high quality food, anti-inflammatory food, food that makes our body feel good all of the time, right? Or most of the time. However, sometimes eating for our mind does not always align with eating for our body, and that's okay. We don't have to always eat for our mind, and we don't have to always eat for our body. I feel like we should eat maybe obviously more for our body most of the time, just because that is what is going to become inflamed if we don't honor our body with food. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we cut off the piece that really wants that piece of Butterfinger dessert, right? That's a very common Thanksgiving, I feel like, thing for us, is that Butterfinger dessert or an apple pie or pumpkin pie. Don't shut that piece of your mind off because you're trying to follow a super rigid or strict diet. Enjoy the piece of pie. And I really just hope that that is conveyed in today's episode. This is honestly probably one of my favorite episodes to record, just because it feels very near and dear to things that I've struggled with in the past. And even as I was jotting down the layout, I'm like, yeah, there are some good nuggets in here. I really feel like you're going to leave, hopefully feeling, like I said, confident about going into this week of Thanksgiving, giving thanks for what we have been given, not obviously just this week, but continuing on with that gratitude. Gratitude has made one of the biggest differences for me and honestly my life in the last couple of months. And it's something that I try to practice daily, although it's really hard and it seems very yeah, Bailey, we get it. We should be grateful. But when you're actively practicing it, which is very, very different, it really is a huge benefit to our mind, body, and spirit. So, okay, before we get into that, I'll give you some brief updates. Today's episode probably will be a little bit longer like they always are, so I'm not going to talk too much about what's going on because really not much new has been going on other than this last weekend. We got to go visit, Nate and I visited our friends Emily and Luke. I met Emily when I worked at St. Elizabeth Hospital, and we really just, I feel like it was a very quick friendship. We very quickly realized that we aligned on in multiple areas of our life. And so we went to Jackson Hole this summer. We met up with them when I went with Nate and my brother, and then we met up with those two. And then we just made a trip out to Illinois to see them this last weekend. So we were there half the day Friday, all of Saturday, and then we left around like after breakfast on Sunday, and it was truly just so fun. We relaxed and didn't do much, but honestly, that's always kind of preferred. When I just think it's very comforting to have friends where you can just hang out with them and you don't have to entertain each other. You can really just relax and have good conversation. And that's exactly what we did. On Saturday, we went antiquing. So I got some cute little things. I got some baby books and then this little like figurine of this cute little dog for the nursery. I also thrifted the pair of overalls that I've been trying to find for so long for our baby boy. And they're like the blue pinstripe overalls. They're like that Oshkosh brand, and they are so cute. So that had been on my list for a long time to find, and I found those, and they are the perfect. They're like, I think 6 to 9 months, which will be right around fall of next year, which is just so crazy. And then we also, what else did we do? We ate good food. Emily is just a good cook, so she made some delicious like peanut butter cup bars that were out of this world, and some homemade eggnog, which insanely delicious as well. Both recipes that I really do want to share, obviously not take any credit for, but I feel like more people need to see these recipes because they were a highlight. And then we just, had some great breakfast. We got to work out together. Emily is also expecting, so it's just fun because, we talked a lot about that because we're about 1 month apart, almost exactly, which is crazy. She's due before me, but even talking about labor and everything, and I'm trying to come to terms with what that whole experience is going to look like. And it was just reassuring and comforting to talk to somebody about that. And just somebody also that I feel like we align on a lot of what we're wanting to do throughout labor and even like what we're doing now and then postpartum. It just aligns really closely. So that's also really nice just to have somebody to talk to that you feel very aligned with and how they're gonna approach it all. Okay, so I'm trying to think. That's really about it. This week, I really feel like in how I've been nourishing my mind, body, and spirit, I did take a break from Thursday evening until Monday morning, just responding back to people and especially business-wise. And I noticed myself apologizing for taking so long to respond to people. And I feel like it's just so silly because I don't always respect an instant response, but I always think that other people expect that from me, which is just extra pressure I put on myself. And so I took some time off and it was really nice. I was actually going to work some on Sunday, and I told Nate, I'm like, you know what? I have plenty of time on Monday morning. I'm not doing anything when we get home. And it was a 7.5-ish hour drive to Illinois and then back home. So we had time in the car where I'm like, maybe I should be working, but I really just tried to create some separation. And I will say that's what's hard because I feel like I then have a difficult time getting the momentum to get back into work. But at the same time, I know that's because I pretty actively have been working on boundaries, and I feel like I've set boundaries, but people like to cross boundaries, and I don't really even have I do have specific examples on why I maybe feel this way, but even thinking ahead, so we're going to Hawaii after Christmas with my family, and I am truly taking 9 days and will be unreachable. And Nathan's like, you just need to communicate that, like starting now, just communicate that with people. Be like, I'm getting to the point where I'm almost burnt out and I need to not think about work. Don't talk to me about your health. Don't talk to me about what you're eating. Don't talk to me about your health issues, which that sounds really harsh. And I do genuinely care, but I think, and I would be interested to hear other health professionals' opinions, but I think when you hear so many stories, it almost makes you more numb to the severity of the story. And that's not saying that I'm not ever coming from a place of empathy with clients. It's always like, I feel like I pour so much of my heart into those interactions, which is hard because I want their results almost as much probably as they do, because it is so important to me that their health is taken seriously and that they actually work with somebody who really, really deeply cares about them. But I would say it's more so the people outside of that realm where I think when you are somebody who does that for a living, people tend to kind of unload some of those things on you just because it's what your job is, right? I think about like a small town family doctor. I have so much empathy for them because they go to church. They probably get told things they don't necessarily want to hear in that setting. Or they go to the school that their kid goes to and they, again, get dumped on. Or they get messaged from friends like, hey, what medication should I be taking for this issue? And I have a lot of empathy for those people. So all of that to say, I think I needed to set the boundary this last weekend, and even looking ahead, I'm already kind of planning when I will be setting boundaries, and pretty rigid boundaries, just because, I mean, we all get burnt out, right? If somebody was just talking to you, I always tell Nathan this, I'm like, if somebody was just always talking to you about accounting all the time, the podcasts you listen to were about accounting, the books you read were about accounting, you would meet with 10 clients a week and they were all talking to you about accounting, like, which granted, he probably does some of that. There is some overlap there. But I'm like, and then you go to a family gathering and you get talked to about accounting, like, wouldn't it just be kind of tiring? And I'm like, I love what I do and I love hearing from other people and I love hearing other people's stories, but it's still tiring. So I'm trying to find ways to refill my cup and create some of that, I don't know, even just resistance to the conversation, because I want to be able to be a listening ear and always approach interactions with compassion and interest. And I just notice sometimes that gets kind of cut off when I'm really drained. And so I'm just, actively trying to, like I said multiple times, set the boundaries, but also find ways to refill my cup, because that's what I tell clients to do. I tell clients, hey, you need to set boundaries. You need to find things outside of work to refill your cup. And when I'm neglecting that, I notice that I also have a hard time setting boundaries, and vice versa. So it's just an area I'm overall trying to work on. So one small way to do that was definitely taking a step back this weekend. Okay, then how I'm nourishing my body is utilizing my time the best. So this for me this week, because I'm working on some different components of my program that just require a little extra time. Also, reading lab work takes a lot of time for me, and I feel like a lot of brain power. So the days when I'm even looking at 1 to 2 different labs, I feel pretty exhausted mentally, just because there's a lot of brain power that goes into that. But with even like today, so I have a call from 11 to about 12 or 12:30, and I had my alarm set for 6:30, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk for 45 minutes, and then I'll get into recording the podcast, yada, 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 creating my to-do list. And then when my alarm went off, I'm like, Bailey, you have a call that you're going to be on from 11 to 12:30. Why don't you utilize that time to walk on the treadmill instead of feeling like you have to get up super early? Not that 6:30 is early, but my Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm up at 5. And so it's just hard to get up on Tuesdays and Thursdays because it's always the day after. But I'm like, I know my body needs extra sleep right now. My body's been communicating that it needs more rest. So why wouldn't you utilize that hour and a half to walk instead of trying to squeeze it in this morning? So I'm feeling a lot better about that, and just kind of utilizing my time, like I said, the best, and not trying to squeeze everything in every single day, but habit stack, because that makes my whole day just look a little less stressful or overwhelming if I'm able to stack habits on top of each other. And then finally, how I'm nourishing my spirit. I actually created a playlist on our way home from Illinois for labor, and it just has a lot of my favorite worship songs that I think would be very peaceful and encouraging in that time, which I know is kind of premature, but I want to be able to add to it throughout the next 3.5 months. Again, I feel like when I enter into March, it's kind of like, will I go way after my due date? Will I be early? Like there's just, of course, we just don't know. So I'm like, let's just get some of these little things because I'm sitting in the car for 7.5 hours. Let's just get some of these little things done or thought about. And that was just really nice to get that done, but also just like think about the songs that when I'm going to be in that state that I want to gravitate towards, and having them all be worship songs, I think is just like, it's very encouraging for me. And I also then listened through the playlist and loved how it's coming together. So that was also just a fun way to nourish my spirit, but also to see the correlation of like, what do I need in times when I think it's going to be really tough? And I love that I go towards like those spiritual songs in those moments. So let's jump into the bulk of today's episode. I wanted to give you a little bit of a history of how I used to view food during the holidays when I was in my prime diet phase. So I really felt like I always needed to have control over my food. I've shared in the past, and this wasn't necessarily around a gathering, but when I feel like my family kind of caught on, like, okay, there's something not so normal with your relationship with food happening, was when I like physically broke down because my mom was going to make something for supper and I didn't have control over what it was. And it like really, really stressed me out. And I can't even explain it. I was just like crying. And my brother's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, that's not what you tell somebody. But I mean, also he was still very young and obviously also didn't probably know how to handle the situation. And I've shared that full story in the past, but that was when I feel like I recognized that need for control and that need for control around food. And I think this also played into the first year of marriage where Nate and I lived in downtown Omaha, which you have every restaurant under the sun located around you. And we barely ever ate out. And that was because when I would eat out, I didn't have control over food. And that was when I was very much so trying to heal that piece. But it was still really hard for me to actually want to go out and eat. Sushi was about the only thing that we would either like go and eat or we would grab and take with us back to our apartment, because for some reason that was something that like felt like an okay thing for me to have. But again, it was that control piece. I also think I would use the holidays as a time to fret over all the bad things that would be in my food. And I saw some reels going around like how to know if the food at your gathering contains seed oils. And then it went into depth and it was kind of a meme, but I'm like, honestly though, like I feel like we're putting a lot of fear into people around seed oils and around things that are quote inflammatory, when in reality, Thanksgiving is just one day of the year. And although for us, we have 3 Thanksgivings this year, so it definitely gets spread out. But again, it's like one day of the year, and gatherings are just something I think in themselves where I'm not saying you just let all rules or any beliefs you have around food get thrown out the window. But again, you have to consider your mind, you have to consider your body and do what is best for both in that time. So I would always then try to avoid things like dairy or seed oils or any bread-like carbs because, I mean, although granted, yes, I'm lactose intolerant, so I feel best if I don't do dairy, but I'm kind of integrating a lot more dairy into my diet by doing raw dairy, and I've talked a lot about that. And I feel totally fine, which means I can have minimal amounts of dairy and feel fine, and I notice my skin doesn't break out. But there was a period of time where dairy was really, really hard on my stomach. And so I would kind of use that as my excuse to not eat things. Oh, it has dairy in it, I can't have it. Okay, then there's that restriction, that wall that's been put up. I can't eat that. That's bad for me. It'll make me feel bad. And then I would be able to kind of get away with eating maybe less or just eating different foods. I also was always worried ahead of the time about what there would be to eat versus enjoying the deeper meaning of getting together with people, which is getting together with people. It's not so much the food. There was so much emphasis that I put on the food, and I didn't think about like, oh yeah, I'm super excited. You know, even Nate and I were on our drive home, like, what are you most excited for this Thanksgiving weekend? And I'm like, I'm excited to see my cousins because I haven't seen them since probably Easter. Like, it's been a long time, and I love spending time with them. And so I'm like, it's been a long time since I've seen these cousins, and I really am excited that they will be at the gathering this Thursday. And he was like, yeah, I'm excited to see your grandparents. I don't think I've seen them for like a month, you know? And so when we think about what we're most looking forward to, it's not like, oh, I'm really looking forward to pumpkin pie. Like, no, it's the people that I get to be around while I'm eating the pumpkin pie. And that's just a different mindset, and it's a different approach to the gathering because, again, we're entering into it already thinking about what we're most excited for, and it has nothing to do with the food that we're going to be eating. I also would over-exercise the morning of, thinking that I could burn 500 calories, and then the extra 500 calories that I'd be eating that day would basically be a wash because I exercised and I really just tried to burn as many calories as possible. And although I don't disagree that movement before the gathering is helpful, for me, it was totally let me wear my Apple Watch to see how many calories exactly I'm burning, and then let me track in my MyFitnessPal how many calories I'm eating extra of today to make sure that it was a wash and I'm still on track to lose X amount of pounds by this amount of time. Like it was so calculated, and you guys, it was exhausting. Having to track your calories, track your macros, track all the things, it's exhausting. When I work with clients, we track water, we track sleep, and then eventually we track protein. Most people are not tracking their entire plate every single day for a prolonged amount of time. Some people can have a really great relationship with that. Other people use and abuse it. I definitely used and abused it. I'm not going to say it wasn't effective, but it wasn't healthy. And that was really a big focus that I put on the morning of the gathering was, like I said, over-exercising. So I wanted to kind of give you, in today's episode, 5 things that can help minimize discomfort and help you feel in control around food during the holidays. I'm also going to leave you with some just gentle reminders because I really, again, like I said, want you to feel comfortable and in control this next weekend or week, end of the week, as you go into these different events and different holidays. And this can obviously also be implemented around any significant event or holiday that is to come up in the future. Okay, there is nothing that I love more than spreading some beef fat on my face. Okay, that might not be entirely true, but I do love that. And the brand that makes that so easy is Kalos. Kalos Company is a company that I have honestly followed for the last year and a half and truly fallen in love with their products. I currently use their facial cleansing oil as well as their tallow face lotion. It leaves my skin feeling so hydrated and glowy. If you've never made the switch to a cleansing oil, I'm telling you, you are missing out. It is a way to take off your makeup without dehydrating your skin or having to scrub it super intensely to get all the makeup and grime off from the day. I'm honestly just about to order their Hydra Face Tonic because especially in winter, I notice my skin, it just gets really, really dry. Even when I'm doing all the things I would normally do in the summer, the winters in the Midwest are truly just brutal. So with that, I'm going to be using my code Nourish15 to get 15% off my order, and I would encourage you to do the same if you've been looking to make the switch to a cleansing oil, tallow products, or honestly any skin or body care. I recommend these products to a lot of clients that struggle with eczema, hives, rashes, acne. They really do work wonders, and I have 100% trust in the quality of the ingredients in this brand. So if you're interested in getting more face nourishing, creamy, rich, glowy skin, go ahead and use my code Nourish15 for 15% off your order. All of this will be linked in the description of today's episode as well to make shopping super easy. All right, so the first one is to eat breakfast and move your body the morning of the gathering. So don't avoid breakfast because you'll know you'll be eating maybe more than usual. It is not something that you need to save up calories for, and I just want to remind you of that. I think oftentimes we're like, I'm not going to eat breakfast because I know I'm going to be having a huge lunch or a huge supper. And really, that just leads to under-eating in the morning and overeating in the evening or afternoon, and you're not going to feel very good. Eating within that first hour of waking up is a habit that I try to get almost every single client on, if it works best for their body, because it is so crucial for your metabolism. You think about cortisol, if that's spiking in the morning, you really should have a lot of your largest amount of energy in the morning. Eating a good protein-rich breakfast is not something you should regret. I know the morning of, I'm probably going to have my typical 3 to 4 eggs, a slice of sourdough with avocado on top, maybe some fruit on the side, and some spinach on top of the avocado toast with some sea salt. It's going to be delicious. And guess what? I'm already planning ahead, knowing that maybe a pattern in the past where I would have avoided breakfast because I was eating a larger meal would show up. I am planning ahead. I know what I'm going to be eating that morning. I'm holding myself accountable right now to eating that in the morning. And I think when we go into it being pretty satisfied, you're going to notice you don't feel like you need to eat everything under the sun or justify why you're eating food. I think oftentimes I would be like, well, I exercised this morning and I didn't have time to eat breakfast, so I'm so hungry for Thanksgiving dinner. It's like, well, Bailey, you don't need to justify why you're eating what you're eating. You don't need to justify it to yourself or the people around you. But also, if you would have had breakfast, you probably would feel a lot better and you wouldn't have to overindulge in everything because you had a balanced meal to start your day. You also can anticipate what that first meal of your day is going to look like, right? I can already anticipate what breakfast is going to look like for me because I'm going to be in the comfort of my home. Whereas when you go to a gathering, if you're not bringing a dish or if you are going out to eat, you can't always anticipate what's going to be there. Not saying the options will be, quote, bad by any means, but I like to make sure that that first meal of the day is something very quality so that regardless of what I eat throughout the rest of the day, not saying it can all just be like thrown to the side and I can eat whatever I want, but this is a very specific and kind of niche event, obviously Thanksgiving, where I know then when I go into that meal, I can eat some of those things that I don't get all the time, and I can fulfill that part of my mind that really wants that creamy, delicious dessert, and I'm not going to feel guilty because I already had the foundation, which is breakfast. I'm drinking enough water and I got some good sleep the night before. Like, there are just some of those foundational things that I don't think you should avoid. Movement is that second piece, right? So moving your body gets digestive going and flowing, which is what I just like to say. Basically, you won't be constipated, hopefully, if you move your body, especially when you wake up in the morning. So my plan already, like I said, I'm already planning this expectation for myself. I'm going to do a 30-minute incline walk on Thursday morning and do some lymphatic drainage massage when I wake up. Make sure that my lymph nodes have a chance to kind of cleanse, get, again, things going and flowing. That is pretty sure to have that happen every morning if I do that lymphatic drainage massage. And then after I incline walk, I'm going to add in some pelvic floor strengthening exercises and stretches. Again, think less of it like, okay, I'm working out this morning to burn calories so I can eat more food, but more so I'm moving my body to improve digestion so you can experience that bowel movement and feel cleansed as you walk into that gathering. I know that's a little maybe TMI, things we don't always like to think about. And this is like very TMI, but you can't tell me that having a bowel movement doesn't make you feel better. It just does, right? So think about, okay, how can I cleanse my colon? How can I get things out of my system before I enter into a meal where I'm going to be eating more food maybe than usual, or just different foods than usual? Number 2 is implementing the core 4. Yes, even when there's creamy mashed potatoes and gravy and marshmallows on top of your sweet potatoes, you can still implement the core 4. If you don't know what the core 4 is, you need to go back and listen to the 4-part series I did on it, because this is the method that I use and practice with every single client, again, because it helps us just feel better. It reduces inflammation, balances blood sugar, helps us have improved digestion, less bloating, less constipation, all the things when you're able to have these 4 components to your meal. So when we think about protein, when I think about, okay, how am I going to fill up my plate? I'm going to have about a third of my plate be protein. Protein is something you don't want to underdo. Oftentimes, I think there's so many delicious looking fluffy salads, which are wonderful, right? But I know if I would just have those salads, I would still be hungry for food about 30 minutes later because they're not protein rich and they're not filling. They also will probably spike blood sugar if they're super high in those, syrups and sweets and all the things. So with protein, a third of my plate is going to be turkey or chicken or whatever protein source is available. Then about a fourth of my plate I know is going to be a starchy carb. So this will be either the potatoes, the bread, rice, etc., whatever that dish is for you. And then fill your plate, half of your plate really, I guess I shouldn't say you. For me, I know I'm going into it. Around half my plate is going to be fiber in the form of a fruit or vegetable. So fruit salad or a fresh lettuce salad. And if you honestly don't expect there to be something like that there, maybe consider bringing your own. I just actually texted my grandma and asked her if I could bring a harvest salad. I'll share the recipe somewhere within this next week, maybe on my Instagram story. And it's really just like a spring mix. You do some pecans, you do a homemade poppy seed dressing, fresh feta cheese, and homemade sourdough croutons, and apples, like thinly sliced apples. And you just mix it all together, and it is so delicious. It's so filling, and it's just... It's interesting, right? It's not like an iceberg lettuce salad. It's interesting. And again, I don't want to bring my own salad this time because I want control over being able to have a fresh fruit or vegetable. I truly just think we all kind of feel better when we do have that there, and it brings a little bit of lightness to the meal. And honestly, I just love cooking it, and I love not cooking it, but I love cooking, and I really do like making this salad, so I'd love to share that. And honestly, if green bean casserole is the closest thing there is to a fresh fruit or vegetable, no guilt needed there, right? Enjoy the green bean casserole. But this is just how I want to approach the meal so I feel my best. Finally, the healthy fats, I think, around these heavier, more dense meals kind of just fill in the gaps. I'm not intentionally looking to add a tablespoon of butter to my dinner roll just so I get that healthy fat, although it's probably what that fat will look like. There's probably butter or oils being used in the things that you're eating anyway. So not something maybe that needs as much of an emphasis when it comes to the core four, but for sure protein is that number one component here. The core four also doesn't mean that you need to enter into this meal feeling restrictive with food, but it really just gives you the best chance to minimize the amount of bloating and discomfort that you have because it's giving you all those components you need to not have that, right? The core four I created very intentionally with these four components because they are the things that I look for in every meal that I make because I feel so much better when I have them. I always put a focus on protein because it helps so much with balancing blood sugar, which contributes to so many other health issues and concerns. When we think about fiber, helps get things moving out of your body, right? If you're eating a heavier, dense meal, you need something to help push it out. So we got to think about those frozen or fresh fruits or vegetables. Typically, these are all going to be fresh or maybe cooked vegetables, which is totally fine that you're having at a gathering. And thinking about how you can add those in so that you do have a bowel movement and again, ultimately don't feel uncomfortable. Number 3 is to chew food and take your time between plates. If you're somebody who knows you're probably going to get seconds because the food is so delicious, chewing your food can increase the creation of enzymes created to digest food. So when you chew the food, you're creating that salivary gland. It's helping with the breakdown of food as it goes through your system into your gut. And then when it gets there, it doesn't have to do so much of the work. It's obviously like even when we think about cooked vegetables versus raw, most people tolerate cooked vegetables a lot better because they're already broken down. So when you think about eating this meal, rather than shoving everything in your mouth as fast as you can, which when food tastes so good, of course we want to do that, think about those 10 to 15 chews that you can have per bite. It's going to help you slow down. Also, that satiety hormone is going to be activated. You're going to notice that trigger to your mind saying, hey, we actually don't need more food. You don't need to go get more pie today because you feel really full and really very comfortable. That's kind of where you want to get to. And I know that can be really hard and that just takes a lot of time to create that connection. But it's like slowing down, you're going to feel full a lot faster than if you shove everything in and then about 5 minutes, 10 minutes afterwards, it all hits you and you're like, oh, I feel so uncomfortable. I need to open up the top of my pants because there's not enough room here for this belly. And that's okay, right? I'm not trying to make you feel guilty if that's how you go about eating it, but I just want you to know that you're gonna feel more comfortable if you slow things down. Also, taking your time in between plates. So when you sit, after you've finished eating very nice and slow, not trying to keep up with the people around you or race them to get seconds before anybody else, you just sit there and you focus on the people around you because that's why you're there, right? To get together with the people you love. You sit you think, okay, now I'm sitting here. It's about a few minutes after I just ate my plate. How am I feeling? Do I need more food? Would I feel better if I didn't and I just waited for dessert? Where are you at? And this is where you can gauge for yourself, like, how am I feeling? What do I need? What does my body need? Do I just need more water? Did I drink any of the water that's sitting in front of me while I was eating? No, I didn't. Okay, so this is the time I'm going to drink my water nice and slow, and I'm going to sit here. Again, then if you're like, oh, my stomach is still kind of growling, I'm going to go get more food. Awesome, right? But it's giving yourself that time. It's letting your body catch up with your mind. Number 4 is to focus more on the people that you're with than the food you're eating. I've even had I guess just other people I've been on Zoom calls with, so it typically falls under the category of clients, but in this instance, it was not. And she had said that she's making a complete transformation on what their Thanksgiving meal looks like this year, and they're not having like the green bean casserole and the creamy potatoes because they just really want to have a very healthy Thanksgiving dinner. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. But one thing I had said to her, because her family was kind of disappointed they wouldn't have green bean casserole, I said, you know what, honestly, how I talk to clients is I say you should focus more on the people you're with than the food you're eating. So yes, the food that you're eating is important, but I think you need to focus on your mind as well, right? Like, are you emotionally fulfilled? Are you even mentally fulfilled around the food you're consuming on this gathering? If your kids are used to getting a green bean casserole, like, make them a green bean casserole, because it's probably something that when they eat that, they think of you and they think about Thanksgiving and they think about spending that time with you. Like, it's not a bad thing to enjoy foods like that. And so, of course, I'm not trying to shame anybody for wanting to take a healthier alternative to Thanksgiving, but I also think that the people that you're with should triumph the food that you're going to be eating. And this is, again, where it comes into thinking about what are you most excited for this year? What are you most excited? Who are you most excited to see? Who do you want to talk to? Who do you want to spend extra time with? Who makes you feel emotionally fulfilled when you have a conversation with them? Like, those are the people you should surround yourself with during maybe this long weekend or even on that Thanksgiving day. If you're with family, like, figure out who those people are and sit down and have a conversation with them and enjoy that conversation with them. Because yes, we put so much focus on food. And if you've ever struggled with your relationship with food, it is something that is worth having attention, right? For me, I still have to prepare myself for those environments just because I'm not going to lie, like, even seeing my body change during pregnancy, it messes with my brain a little. Like, it's just such a rapid growth. I luckily ordered some clothes where I know I'll feel very confident and very cute, but at the same time, like, when you put on clothes and they don't fit from last year, for me, like with this belly, it's like they don't fit the same. Even clothes I wore a month ago don't fit the same. And I'm not going to lie, like, sometimes it's like, well, maybe I'm eating too much or maybe I'm not eating enough, and that stress is just, I think, it can weigh on us and it can take a lot of the joy out of the gathering, regardless of what phase your body's in. I always say you don't have to love and be obsessed with your body all the time, but you do need to really value it and honor your body. And so I think that can look very different throughout stages of life. But like I said, we don't need to enter into this gathering thinking about, oh, I can't eat that because I don't want to look like this, or all my progress will be lost if I eat this, because it's not true, right? And it's easier said than practiced and remembered, but take some time, think about the people that you're with. I also think that the conversation that you have in between courses or in between meals can be really valuable. So I wanted to give you some conversation starters. This is a little corny, a little cheesy, but things that I personally want to remember, because people are more valuable than the work that they do. And I think oftentimes we think, well, we're just going to sit there and talk about work, or we're going to talk about our jobs or things that we don't love about our jobs. And that's draining, and that doesn't leave anybody around you feeling very grateful, probably, nor do you feel very grateful if all you're being asked about is work. So here are some conversation starters that I thought were kind of fun that just came to mind. But the first one being, what hobbies are they enjoying recently? Do they have any travel plans for these winter months? What is the best part currently about their job, right? If you're going to ask about their job, what's the best part about it? What do you love about what you do? Next one and last one, have they visited any close friends recently or plan to see them? I would love to share about my trip to Illinois, like things like that. Like it's fun to talk about the people in your life that you love. And when you're able to go see them or make plans to see them, those are things you typically do want to share. I know that we're going to Hawaii in January, and my mom would love to talk about that trip if you asked her. So it's like, think about the things that are fun and exciting that are coming up or could be coming up for someone and ask more about that. The hobby question I think is so good because it'll either make them think, oh wow, I really don't have a hobby and I just focus on work all the time. Or maybe they have a hobby that is so enjoyable for them that they want it to become their business or their full-time job one day, or they just do it for fun and as an outlet to get away from work. Like you can find out so much about a person just based on what they have an interest in. So I know that might seem kind of silly to have conversation starters, but like I said, I think we should be focusing on the good. Typically, when people overeat or stress eat at gatherings or over drink, right? Especially with the alcohol, when they push the booze, it's because they're stressed or they're overwhelmed or they're exhausted. And I think sometimes that can be almost jump-started when we talk about things that probably are naturally stressing them out anyway. So focus on the positive this year, okay? And number 5, if you're going into this Thanksgiving feeling stressed about what you'll eat or fearing that you're going to lose all the progress that you've made, I just want to leave you with these reminders. The first one being progress can't be lost in one day or in one meal. Think about how long you have worked to eat well or develop an exercise routine. The results that you've seen from doing that will not, I promise you, no matter how much you eat, will not disappear in one day. It's not possible. Number 2, enter this gathering focusing more around the people you're with than the food that you're eating. That's the most important piece anyway. I've said that so many times, and that's because it reigns true time and time again. The food, yes, if you've struggled with your relationship with food or have an interesting or a different dynamic with food, it's a huge component, but I encourage you, think about the people you're with, have conversation with the people you love. If those people that really refill your cup are not the people at the gathering that you're at, make time to see those people outside of that. There's hopefully time off that you get this weekend to just see people or to relax or to get away from people if that's what also refills your cup. All right, number 3, it is normal for you to take a post-nourishment walk if that's something you consistently do outside of the holidays. The people around you probably also would enjoy a little post-nourishment walk, and that's something you can do together, right? So I always used to think that if I would ask people to go for a walk after we ate, it would maybe expose the really unhealthy relationship I had with exercise, but I feel like I'm at a point right now where I like to move my body after I eat. Oftentimes I don't just eat a meal and then go sit on my booty. And so that's normal for me. So I think asking the people around you, like, hey, anybody want to bundle up and like get outside, go for a nice little walk after we eat? Again, digestion is going to improve. Blood sugar is going to be balanced. You're probably going to feel a lot more refreshed because you got out of a house that's probably pretty warm and toasty and got outside and you moved your body. And again, here comes that conversation piece. Whoever goes with you, you probably are going to have a pretty good conversation because those just seem to happen when I go for walks with people. I genuinely have the best conversations with them. It's just something about moving. It gets that brain active. It gets the conversation just going in a completely different way. I don't even know how to explain it and I don't know the science behind it, but I think that whoever decides to go with you, if that's something you do, you're going to realize that they'll probably really enjoy that as well. Okay, finally, food is just one part of your overall health. So think about your emotional health too. Who can you see, like I said, this long weekend that will fill your cup and make you feel refreshed? It's okay if that's not family. It's okay if that's not your closest friends. I know family dynamics can be complex sometimes and maybe make you feeling a little bit more drained than fulfilled. So do what you need to do so that when you enter back into work on Monday, you feel really, just like I said, refreshed. You feel good about it. You don't feel like you need a vacation from your vacation. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself a little extra this long weekend, and hopefully you get that. Prayers that you get a long weekend. If you are not within the U.S., which I want to know who you are because I'm going to guess that most people are within the U.S., but you are probably then not celebrating Thanksgiving. But still, take this weekend. take care of your body, nourish your body well, and just refill that cup. Focus on the people you're with, surround yourself with people you love, and eat some darn good food because I'm so excited. I don't even know what's on the menu, but I just know it's going to be good. I actually had somebody say, well, you're so lucky you get to eat for 2 this Thanksgiving. And again, I think that just goes to how we talk about food as a society, right? We don't actually, when you're pregnant, need to eat for 2. You need to eat like maybe 200 to 300 calories more a day. You're not actually eating for 2. So I'm like, you know what? I honestly feel very comfortable about going to this gathering. I feel like I do a lot of things throughout the day and throughout my life really to support my body that I'm really not worried about overeating. I'm just excited to eat good food. And I think having the confidence to also change the narrative around food, I noticed another thing being said at exercise, like, well, are you going to have exercise class on Wednesday? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Well, I'll be here. Like, well, thank goodness because it's Thanksgiving. Like, we need to move our bodies. And I don't disagree. Like, moving your body is good, but don't go into this thinking you need to move your body extra this week so that you can eat a meal on Thursday, right? It is 1 to 2 meals. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the food. Truly, I can't stress that enough. And if you're somebody who's really concerned entering into this time again around that relationship with food, I just encourage you to find somebody you can talk to before you enter that environment, somebody that you trust to share something with that might be pretty vulnerable, and that you also trust to help encourage you and just support you in whatever that relationship looks like. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, just thank you for today. Thank you for a short week and time with family and friends this weekend. I pray for safety for those who are listening as they travel and as they go see family or friends, and that you just keep them safe. I also pray for great conversation around the dinner table and that people just really get along and feel refreshed as they leave this weekend and like they really got to connect with the people around them. I also pray for those who are struggling with their relationship with food and that they are able to enter into this week with a little less stress, a little less overwhelm, and that they really find that person they can confide in and talk to. And if they can't, that they trust and pray to you about whatever's heavy on their heart. And that when they enter into that time of eating, that they feel at peace, with their body and with what they're eating, and that their mind is fulfilled, that their emotional health is fulfilled. And truly, I just pray that for everyone, that these meals are truly nourishing and enjoyable, and that they just enter into Monday feeling like they had a good break, because we all need that. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram, Bailey Seaton on Facebook, and everything honestly is always linked in the description of today's episode, so you can find ways to reach out to me then. I will also say December will be the last month to sign up for one-on-one coaching. If you're somebody, especially when you're listening, you're like, ooh, I have maybe some of those I need to make some mindset shifts, or I have some of those beliefs around food that I want to work on. That is really what I do within one-on-one coaching, also implementing the core 4, the foundation, so you can support your body. That is going to be through my Rebuild program, and December is the last month to join that until June, which is so insane, but I wanted to just share that because some of you listening might have an interest in that, and I want to give you an opportunity to join the wait list. Doesn't lock you in to coaching, but again, just gives us a chance to set up a call, talk about what that looks like so you can get started and I can support you in whatever phase of your healing journey you're in. So with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time with family and friends and enjoy some good food. Bye.